Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Leilani. It is Tuesday night and we are back again at our little book club that we do every Tuesday night. So, let me just put this up here. All right, so we are moving forward with our book of probably the next year and a half. Yeah, because it's about this thick. Is The Harmonial Philosophy by Andrew Jackson Davis. And so I'm going to share screen with you guys. Where are you? Where are you? Share screen. Here we go. Beautiful. Awesome. Can you guys see me here? Can you guys see the screen? Just leave me a comment. And so that way we can continue moving forward. All right, awesome. Let's get to it. The Harmonial Philosophy, Book 1, Revelations of a Divine Being. What and where is God? The mind is incarnated in a physical temple of which the dome is measured by inches, but its thoughts and affections expand into greater dimensions. Earth is too limited, and its materiality is too obvious for the soul. It seeks those living orbs that roll through infinitude. Star after star is counted, constellations are mapped out, like milestones along familiar roads. Still, the mind goes on. It reaches the ineffable mysteries of the sidereal heavens, those invisible worlds of grandeur beyond the most distant stars, amazed at the splendors and harmony, pulsating with joy and the desire to know yet more. The soul's demands. What and where is God? The fields of science have been traversed. The beauties of art have been displayed for our contemplation. The religious works of all nations have been searched, that the soul might comprehend and gaze upon the supernal, the supernal ruler of the universe. But he remains the unseen, uncomprehended Father of all spirits, pure, holy, everlasting, infinite. Belief in God or in a superior power is indigenous to the soul and consequently to all nations and tribes on the surface of earth. So while individual conceptions of God reflect prevailing beliefs for the vast majority, to the mind which thinks independently, such notions will be representative of the person himself. And to this extent, God is in our likeness. They may be scientific, philosophical, or theological. God, considered scientifically, is the greatest fact in the universe, the greatest principle and reality. He is the active or moving principle, contrasted with which nature is moved or passive. He is being of absolute necessity, vitalizing all things. He dwells with all substances and elements and individualities, his motion, life, sensation, and intelligence therein. It is true, therefore, that God is nature, being substance in and of himself, and exerting an active and moving power continually in the empire of matter. It is reasonable to conclude that his attributes and elements are also matter or substance. All his modes of motion may be generalized under attraction and repulsion, or, in the language of harmonial philosophy, as association, progression, and development. But a scientific inquiry into the nature and mode of God is the first and most inferior effort of human reason, and its conclusions are of an external kind, true only so far as they go. Before I keep going, let me go back up here and read that footnote. So, according to the Great Harmonia, which is the book that he is pulling this from, the universal empire of worlds about us is actuated and governed by a divine mind, which is the cause of all that feels or exhibits life. It is likewise the source of all power, and it is itself actual substance because it requires substance to move substance. The affirmation recurs continually, the affirmation of uh, universal empire of worlds. Okay, and this divine mind. Meanwhile, it is sufficient to mention that whatever may appear on the surface, Davis does not really intend to confuse phenomenon with noumena or matter with substance. Nature is elsewhere described as the body of God, meaning the divine vehicle or vesture. Okay, let's get back to it. Philosophy, on the other hand, considers God in reference to principles, causes, and designs, instead of things, effects, and phenomena, which are the province of science. He is, for philosophy, the great central source of life, love, order, and form. Nature exists and operates between God and his designs, while the end or issue of such design must correspond to the magnitude and majesty of the inventor. Contemplate that eternal center from which proceeded the innumerable worlds of immensity, and reason will confess that God is positive, but all else negative. Spirit and matter must not be confounded nor separated. When defining spirit, I have been compelled to employ the term matter in the absence of a better word, because it is expressive of substance, and such is spirit. So also the positive mind must not be confounded with nature, nor separated therefrom. God is a distinct as distinct from nature as is the human soul from its body. He is personal in the sense that he contains the principles of perception and all other principles, yet he is not separate from or outside of nature. His mode of being and action is determined by that inevitable constitution of things, of which he is the unfolder, sustainer, and coessential. Theologically considered, God is the great Father, spirit of all spirits. The essential qualities and properties of his infinite soul penetrate all of nature and all intelligent essences. These qualities and properties are love, understood fundamentally, and thus God is love. Theologically, we think of this inexhaustible sweetness of this love. We think of God's close and unchangeable relation to our most interior selves. We feel a particular providence in our existence, a protection from multifarious temptations and accidents in doing of his will willingly. When this view rests, though, as it should rest always upon a scientific and philosophical foundation, divested of mystery and supernaturalism, it is a source of unfailing consolation. If God is apprehended as an organized principle operating according to eternally established laws, so surpassingly righteous that they produce a kind of necessary freedom or independence, then will our spirits bow with intellectual obedience to the will of our Father and experience a beautiful liberty in moving harmoniously with universal nature. It follows that, viewed with scientific eyes, God is a great fact. Philosophically, a great positive mind. And theologically, a great spirit father. The executive element of the great positive mind is will. The essential element is love. Divine love and divine will, in their governing and directing principle, constitute divine wisdom. Eternal, infinite, spread throughout the length and breadth of the universe. Now let's pause for a second and go back up to the footnote to see what it said here about this earlier part. Now it says here, at a much later period, Davis re expressed the position thus: the Father God is one universe, and the Mother Nature is another universe. In heart, in brain, in essence, and in spirit, the twain are perfect counterparts, and their duality is a living oneness, which is called truly eternal harmony. Views of our heavenly home. The word eternal does not appear to be used in any rigid sense, for David recognized elsewhere that the present cosmic order may be dissolved and be replaced afterwards by another. So also the comparison to the text above respecting soul and body is subject to the transitory nature of the latter. Okay. Now, in accordance with the rules of analogical reasoning, it is easy to comprehend what God is and where and how he dwells in the universe. He is the sublimation of all substantial qualities, essences, elements, principles in the highest concentration of unity, the crystallization of all that is refined, pure, bright, harmonious. He resides especially in the vortical encephalon or cerebrum of the universe. The analogy which exists between the divine mind and the universe is therefore established. As the human mind is organized on the finite plane, so is the divine mind organized on the infinite plane. As the seat of human sensation, affection, sentiment, intelligence, and voluntary power is in the brain, so are the qualities, essences, principles, omnipotent power, and eternal omniscience in the sensorium of the universe. The outer universe is a visible manifestation of the indwelling deity. Nature is the body, God is the soul. Nature is the dormitory of all that is unfolded in the great sensorium. God is the cause, nature is the effect. God is the spiritual, nature the material. Nature is finite, God is infinite. The two are joined indissolubly and harmoniously, matrimonially, so to speak, and can never fall asunder. The highest conception which the human mind can attain of the infinite is essentially theological, but the relations which the infinite sustains to the finite, which God sustains to nature, can be comprehended only by a philosophical intellect, and hence such terms as our Heavenly Father and the great first cause will be understood readily. But the organized principle and the great sensorium of the universe make a deeper call on the minds. The great positive mind is love, will, wisdom, and nature is substance, aggregation, universe. And the laws which flow from God into the organism of nature are those of association, progression, and development. God acts upon the universe anatomically in the structure of planets and in the forms of solar systems. There are manifold indications of a great anatomical law. And insomuch as spirit is a substance superior to matter, which it moves, the formative principle which lies back of and beneath all visible combinations of matter must of necessity, most of necessity, contain whatsoever the externals of nature manifest to sense. The series, degrees, associations of structures in nature are expressive of principles contained in the one great principle. God also acts physiologically on the universe. As the acorn develops into the oak tree, as the germ of all forms produces an ultimate development in its own image and likeness, so the divine mind begets its image and likeness in the human soul. So, also, it expands and unfolds its celestial and immutable principles into mineral, vegetable, and all animate forms. A great functional physiological law flows through the labyrinths of immensity. Nothing which manifests life is without function to perform in the great body of the causation, and the forms and functions of material organisms in nature are demonstrations that the great motive power of the universe contains principles of structure and function, which in these attain their ultimate. And in the third place, God acts on the universe mechanically. For there is a certain sense in which nature is a vast mechanism of which God is the great inventor. And in its sublime workings, the true mechanic on earth can learn of God. And from the lowest to the highest, he can discern the constant evolution of principles, motives, and forces. The centrifugal and the centripetal tendencies of human mechanics imitate on an imperfect scale, corresponding tendencies and motions among planetary bodies. Once more, nature indicates the modes of divine existence. And as the spirit of man acts on his body, so does the spirit of God act upon the universe. But in the fourth place, God acts on the universe chemically. And this divine chemistry is the harmony and perfection of those laws which interrelate the great vital principle and its physical organism. That is to say, the boundless universe. The principle of association, which is the primary manifestation of divine love, flows forth into all branches of organic life, and chemical action is its sequence or companion. Such action is indeed one mode of creation. Now, in the fifth place, God acts upon the universe electrically. The divine mind employs electricity as a medium of communication to all parts and particles of the universe, an expression of the unchanging pulsations of his eternal soul. And lastly, he also acts magnetically. The eternal mind is surrounded by great spiritual sun, resplendent with emanations of immortal life and beauty. Its essences, principles, and harmonies flow through the whole organism of nature, as the blood and principles of life and sensation flow through man's body. But in fine, God acts upon universe spiritually, as the great spiritual principle, totality of being, and crown of all. Woo! Damn, that chapter was absolutely gorgeous. So, before we move on to the second chapter, let me go back to um, our thing here. Do you guys have any questions of what I just read? There were so many poetic sentences that if I were to stop every time I got like a moment of like, "Ooh, that was juicy," we would have never finished this chapter. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. We would have never finished it. So, that's why I'm relying on you to kind of steer me with any particular ideas or thoughts that popped in your head as I was reading. If anything was confusing, please leave a comment while I take my sips. Mm. Mm. Okay. Well, so just to summarize, obviously that very first chapter was describing who God is and specifically what God is. So, mind you, this is this is the thing. His writings were essentially channels. This is kind of the thing about him. He was not an educated man. You know what I mean? Like he was not this is not the writings of a kid from Poughkeepsie. Like this is definitely much more elevated writing, and we're talking also about a science and philosophy of God and of nature and of that interplay that we're going to get into. Right now is just about really describing God and his various his various roles and the various ways in which he is a creator and how he imbues his creation, right? So we see him as a divine mind where he imbues his creation electrically. We see him as divine substance, which he imbues in his creation as a chemical. We see him as, divine matter, which we see as nature, right? We see and nature's laws. We see him as, you know what I mean? Like all these different roles that he plays, because he is not only creator, but he is creation. He's imbued in all of it. And so this is how, that's the role that he plays when he is moving through nature. That's what was being described here in the very first chapter. So just in case you guys didn't get that piece. All right, let's get back to it. So now we're on chapter 2, and I want to share a screen with you guys once again so that you guys can see. Boom. And yeah. So God revealed to intellect. The true nature of causation must be regarded as the fundamental problem of science, for we can never know anything but causes and effects. They are correlatives in language and in thought. So, to the question, what is causation? 4 answers can be given: the skeptical, the material, the pantheistic, the rational, or Christian. To assert that man is utterly ignorant of the true nature of causation is total skepticism. To predicate the doctrine of an invariable sequence, as did Hume and Brown, presents the formula of materialism, of which idealism is another phase. Idealism and materialism are identical at the root. Both take it for granted that all nature is but a dream show, where phenomena are interlinked only by the bond of antecedent and consequent. If we answer the emanation is that only causation, we are landed now in pantheism, where all individual existences vanishes, all notion of right and wrong, truth and falsehood. So now we remain with the answer, which is what I deem rational, the Christian and true, that causation resides in the mind, that matter can never be a cause, and that every phenomenon is the effect of intellectual force exerted by pure volition. This view is for now proposed to be demonstrated after the rigorous method of geometricians. Okay. It may be laid down as a general proposition that the perception of mathematical truth is essentially an attribute of intellect. It follows that to work mathematically invices mind. Now, all motions of the material universe, in their wondrous variety and unity, are strictly mathematical. I will begin with my own organism. I survey my right hand, it has 5 fingers. I look at my left, it also has 5. I turn to each foot, and on each foot behooves 5 toes. I think of my bodily senses, and these are 5 again. Throughout all members of my body, there runs also a wondrous duality in my eyes, arms, hands, feet, ribs, and the convolutions of my brain, where equal members balance each other out. If the cause which arranged the relations of my several organs understand mathematical harmonies, all is luminous. There is no chance to be calculated against their productions, since he who comprehends the relations of numbers can involve them indefinitely and even infinitely, supposing that he himself is infinite. But if the cause which produces the combinations be not mathematical mind, what are the chances against a single combination of 5s in a pair? And what are they in respect of the millions now living, as of all that have lived and passed away? The algebra of an archangel, with infinite space for his sheet and eternity for the period of solution, might be insufficient for the overwhelming computation. The question therefore recurs: could any cause without intellect to perceive and reason to count produce these invariable equations? And we can, however, carry the demonstration that all motions in nature are mathematical through the whole field of phenomena. We may take the invariable ratio between the hydrogen and oxygen in water, of oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere of air, of oxygen and carbon in carbonic acid. Here are a few fragments of the evidence drawn from chemistry. In botany, we can take the first two classes of Linnaeus and arranged according to the number of stamens in each flower. We may analyze a flower of the tobacco plant. It is of the fifth class and has therefore 5 stamens. Its corolla has 5 parts and its calyx 5 points. It is so with every tobacco flower on earth. So it has ever been and so will remain always. Now, we may appeal to the phenomenon of light, that wonderful agent which plays so important a part in the process of creation. We may confine ourselves to the strict algebraic formula of its first law, that the intensity of light decreases as the square of its distance increases, and vice versa. So, also the second law, that the angles of incidence and reflection are always equal. Is it possible that the cause, which this geometricist is devoid of all knowledge of geometry? Were there no other proof of the existence of deity? There is one other consideration in the domain of light which should settle the question forever, and it is this: that every rainbow is an exact mathematical equation of every other rainbow in the universe. But there is finally the science of astronomy, which is another name for sublimity itself. And there are the 3 great laws of Kepler: that all planetary orbits are regular eclipses in the lower focus of which the sun is placed, that the times of occupied by the planet in describing any given arcs of its orbit are always as the areas of sectors formed by straight lines drawn from the beginning and the end of the arcs to the sun and the center, and that the squares of the periods of the planets' revolutions vary as the cubes of their distances from the sun. Pause right there, bitches. I am not going to interpret that for you. These are 3 laws by an astronomer talking about how we can basically calculate the orbits, the eclipses, its movements, its behavior in space and time, etc., etc. All right, that's all you need to know about that paragraph. Thank you. So we are taught in this manner that nothing but mathematical harmony obtains in all motions within our own sphere. We can conceive of nothing but mathematical harmony in any other region, and as nothing but mind can work mathematically, we behold everywhere about us the unequivocal footsteps of God. It follows that every effect in the universe is produced by the immediate agency of mind. Matter and mind are 2 logical categories which encompass all thought and exhaust all nature. But matter being passive and unable, therefore, to originate its own motions, without which no effect can occur in nature, our search after causal force must be carried into the domain of mind. That it is found, there is conformed by our inner consciousness in the motions of its voluntary activity. Our argument is directed to the present, to things as they are now, which is back in the 1800s, y'all, back in like the 1900s, okay? To the sublime evolutions manifested before our eyes. And it is proved to us that God is. But it is directed also to the past, and it is demonstrated that he was then, while the eternal uniformity of nature leads us to a not less certain inference that he will continue forever. There is indeed no past or future. The faith that asserts God proclaims all things present to the soul. Please see this as a really, really important thing to understand. Um, when so a lot of what we're talking about here is the foundation of a lot of like Christian science and stuff like that, but of course extremely obtuse and like exaggerated. But a few things that separates a lot of this sort of new agey Christian sciencey bullshit that you normally would see, and I don't mean to say it like that in terms of like that it's I don't like what they believe. It's just not based in any fact, and so I can't give that any respect. But anyway, what separates stuff like that is phrases like this. Where there is a past, present, and future, where time is very calculated, there is still this understanding that at the end of the day, like he said it at the very, very first chapter, he was like, look, at the end of the day, like God can just like turn around, shut this whole shit down, reboot it, and have a whole new set of fucking laws and a whole new system of how he does this thing. But right now, according to the sciences of today and according to the experiments that we've done so far, this is what I can assert. And this statement right here is also important because it really brings into awareness a lot of Eastern thought that was not really being spoken about a lot here in the West. Like, this is like the starting points of really talking about those things, and this idea that, or like the indigenous idea of time being a spiral or time being a circle or something like that, right? So this is where we start to see the influences of other cultures kind of placing this information, if you will, um, into the collective. I think that's the right way of saying that, because again, we're not talking about a man who was copying off of someone's paper. We're talking about a man who was truly invested in this investigation and was truly, channeling something serious as he was moving through his investigation, and this assertion is really important. Spiritualists, spiritists, espiritistas, we don't talk about this often. Like, we don't mind talking about like the nature of the soul, and we don't mind talking, philosophizing about the nature of God, but like we never give love to this idea of how we view time, right? Like, whether you believe in reincarnation or whether you believe in like an afterlife slash summerland slash heaven or hell, it doesn't address how we perceive time and how we should address time in this lifetime. And I think this phrase, I had to just kind of call it out so that we can kind of just sit with that for a little bit. And that's just me being extra. Anyway, we repose on the bosom of our Father with a confidence that nothing can shake. Friends may grow cold and change around us, enemies may combine for our destruction, but we have our immortal friend, encircling our souls in arms of everlasting love. Then, will I trust him though he slay me? On the summit of this exalted faith, which is certainty, I rest secure. Nothing can move me more. The sensuous world has vanished from beneath my feet. I live already in the spirit land. The immortal dead are around me. I hear them holding high converse in translucent clouds. It is no night's vision, though brighter than all dreams. I am son and heir of universal empire. I have found God who owneth all. The vessel in which I have embarked my drift whithersoever it will on the immeasurable sea of being. Impenetrable clouds may hide the stars of heaven, but God guides the storm. Light lightnings may rend my sails, but on whatsoever shore the wreck of my bark is strewn, he is sure to be there, with all my love and all my hopes around him. There where he is, it is an open gate of heaven, and for there is the everlasting love, and love is heaven. Yes, absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Yes, yes, yes. Um, yes. Hi, Athena. What writings are these? And you're resonating so hard. Good. I'm so glad. So, the book that we are reading today is called The Harmonial Philosophy, which is a compilation of the writings of a very, very influential spiritualist in the early 1800s named Andrew Jackson Davis. And these are his writings, and they are brilliant. Um, and we're kind of going through different authors within the spiritualist, spiritist, and espiritismo community, to help kind of flush out some of these more dense concepts and some of these more complicated languages. And I'm doing this not only for me as a neurodivergent person who likes to read out loud and hear myself out loud in order to process things, but to my fellow friends who maybe need to be read too, or like to read along with a voice. So whatever the case may be, I do it. I do it for my peeps. And yeah, that's what's up. So, how was the reading so far? How was the second chapter? So the second chapter was pretty meaty. It was pretty meaty in the sense that, he was really trying to emphasize how important it is to see the 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 logic and the intellect within the work. You know what I'm saying? The fact that everything has, everything can be calculated, Fibonacci sequence, for example. I'm just throwing that out there. Or like, when we talk about the flower of life, or when we talk about certain geometric shapes that and patterns that appear in nature, or when we talk about cycles of nature, we see patterns pop up. We see certain numbers, 9 months, nine this, nine that, five stems, five petals, five this, seven this, seven this, seven that. So there's a lot of synchronicity in the universe, and what Andrew Jackson is trying to express in these writings is that that's not by accident. It is divine mind, and that those things can be calculated. They can be observed, and they can be calculated, and that language can be exchanged through writing and through just living life, like just simply being alive, simply engaging with nature. You are engaging with God. Like he's trying to press with urgency that God very much permeates all of its creation. That's not just in you, it's in everything. And so you need to start having a different relationship with things. When you go walking on the grass, when you go to pick a flower, when you go to pet a dog, when you interact with a person, always keeping in mind that you are interacting with the force field of God, if you will. Um, but yeah, very dense chapter. Tries to give you a bunch of examples using astronomy, using math. And I'm just like, bro, listen, I get it. You're speaking to your intellectual peeps over here, but like, think of the future. You know, we don't always get smarter. You know what I mean? So that's what we're here for, to kind of work through these very chunky texts together and work it out. Any questions? Because I only do this for, I only do the reading for about 45 minutes, and then I do the last 15 minutes of just kind of like open questions and just like dialogue and whatnot. So if you guys have anything, let me know. If you're interested in some of the other books that I had already read, um, go back to my YouTube channel, The Magical Solution. So far, I have done the first 3 books of the Allan Kardec codices. I didn't do the last 2. I'm gonna do those at a later date. I figured the first 3 are kind of like the juiciest, the meatiest, and people were really kind of craving that. Then I moved into just one book from Chico Xavier, who is a Brazilian medium, and I'll be revisiting him after this ginormous beast of a book that I chose. Um, because Chico also is an amazing, like, when he channels Andre is a great narrator, and the the stories are just a lot of fun to get into. They are so much fun actually that they've made movies on his books. So we'll definitely be revisiting his stuff. And then now we're on this one, the Harmonial Philosophy. And the reason why I chose this one is because Andrew Jackson Davis has published several very, very dense, deep philosophical books, and to read each and every one would absolutely take years, if I'm doing it online and the way that my schedule is. So this one is a compendium, and it kind of picks out pieces from his writings to support his ideas of God, or his ideas of the universe, or his ideas of nature, and so that I feel was much more helpful for you guys than going through all the deep ones. Anyway, all right, so I don't see any questions here. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for an hour. We try and do this every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tonight I started a little late, so sorry for that. But make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, comment, share, show your support. However, go to my website and sign up for my email list to see what's going on, and to get coupons, and to get some freebies and downloads. So it's good times, and that's at themagicalsolution.com. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I will see you soon. This is how we grow. Bye.